Welcome to 20-Sided Adventures. My name's Ryan. This video, we're going to talk about a pretty unique class to Pathfinder 2nd Edition, the Thaumaturge. Now, it's really hard for me to decide how I'm going to describe the Thaumaturge because it's kind of its own thing. You could think of it like Van Helsing as a monster hunter, or perhaps Indiana Jones as this kind of like knows everything archaeologist. But the class revolves around your understanding of strange esoteric knowledge, collecting unique artifacts, gaining tidbits of rare, correct, maybe not correct, legendary, mythical information about all variety of creatures throughout the world. And you use that knowledge and these trinkets to amplify your ability to be effective in combat and in the world. You dip your toes into being able to use magical items, even though perhaps you're not actually magical yourself. You're a reasonable fighter, though you rely more on a wide array of strange, magical, maybe magical, at least you think they're magical, items that you have collected over the years. But before we get into it, I have to show likes and subs. So please, if you like what we do here on the channel, give us a like down below. If you haven't subscribed already, do that. And the easiest way to support the channel, leave a comment. I love chatting with you all. All right, with no further ado, let's figure out what the heck a Thaumaturge is. All right, so here we are, Archives of Nethys, your best tool for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, as always, and we are on the Thaumaturge page. So some things to note right out the gate. You might think because of the knowledge aspect of my description, the key attribute might be intelligence. However, this class, it is charisma, because it's your force of will and belief in these strange esoteric means that everything works. So key attribute is charisma. 8+ con modifier, so you're moderate on the hit point scale compared to other fighters and compared to casters. Some key terms to be aware of. Esoterica refers to your accoutrement of strange talismans, trinkets, and doodads that have supernatural, spiritual, or divine significance to your character that you keep on you at all times. Just a bag of holy symbols or a bag of rabbit's feet or whatever it might be. Your accoutrement of things is referred to generically as esoterica, and you're always presumed to have them on you unless otherwise taken. Also generate a variety of temporary items, which they mention here, similar to infused alchemical items. Some other things to take away is a lot of the class revolve around the Harrow and the Zodiac of Galarian, so several feats might call back to those things. If you are not playing in Galarian, just adapt for your world as necessary. So your initial proficiencies, expert in perception, fortitude and will are your best saves, reflex is your weakest, and you come trained in arcana, nature, occultism, and religion. So that's 4 trainings out the gate with this class, which is pretty impressive, and you get 3+ your int modifier. So if you spend a couple points on int, plus everything else you start with, you are going to have access to a wide range of skills. You're trained in light, medium, or unarmored. This will depend very much on how you build your class out. If you go really high in dex, you can probably get away with light armor. If you want to skimp on dex, save those points for something else, medium armor might be the way to go for you. Level 1, you get esoteric lore. So now you get a free lore, and you'll notice this levels up with you at 3rd, 7th, 15th. And this is a unique knowledge specifically for the Thaumaturge that you can use for haunts, curses, and creatures of any type. Now, you have all of those other knowledges trained for free, so you're thinking, why would I use this in place of those? Well, number 1, esoteric lore uses your charisma modifier, so you're going to probably be best at this. Secondly, you have a bunch of cool feats that all revolve around your esoteric lore versus doing a normal recall knowledge. So that'll most likely be what you're getting the most traction out of. It is also worth noting that this comes with the dubious knowledge feat. So if you critically fail in esoteric lore, you are going to get some wildly inaccurate information that you think sounds like the real deal. Esoteric lore also levels up with you for free, so you get expert at 3, master at 7, and legendary at 15, so you don't have to spend your skill points on this very awesome lore. At level 1, you also get your first implement, which we're not going to go into implements in this video. Just know that those are kind of the key items for how your class is going to operate, and these are your primary tools for dealing with the supernatural. Should you ever lose your esoteric item or you want to swap it out for something else, because they're not magical, they're just common items that you have found that are imbued with unusual power, and you can change them during your downtime. So if you want a specifically different implement, or if you find something of story relevance to become your implement, you can spend 1 day of downtime swapping them out. And then there's some pretty cool examples of what your Esoterica might be here. So I really enjoy the Thaumaturge when you think about what you are drawing out to use your special abilities with. So some examples, however, is you have cold iron nails, scraps of scrolls or scriptures, fragments of bones purportedly from saints, other similar superstitious supernatural objects to help you in your adventures. You get the Exploit Vulnerability feat. This is a single action where you make an esoteric check versus the standard DC of the target, just like a recall knowledge. However, it has some different effects. On a critical success, you remember the creature's weaknesses, and as you empower your Esoterica, you have a flash of insight that grants even more knowledge about the creature. You learn all of the creature's resistances, weaknesses, immunities, including the amount of resistance and weakness, and any unusual weaknesses and vulnerabilities, such as what spells will pass through a golem's anti-magic. You can exploit this creature's mortal weakness or have a personal antithesis. Your unarmed and weapon strikes against this creature also become magical if they aren't already. So the mortal weakness is you basically just get to give your weapon the effect that they are the most weak against. So if they're weak 5 fire, your weapon now deals fire damage against that creature. If they don't have any weaknesses, you can remember that rubbing a bubblegum wrapper that was used by Saint such and such on your weapon, on your hammerhead, will suddenly hurt this creature. You will apply 2 plus half your level weakness to the target against the bubblegum wrapper and be able to do that additional damage. So at some point, as you level up, the personal antithesis might become greater than their mortal weakness. So you're going to need to be able to, manage which of those you want to use. On a success, you learn an important fact about the creature, learning its highest weakness, but not any other weaknesses, resistances, or immunities. On a failure, can only get the personal vulnerability versus what they're actually weak against. And then on a critical failure, you don't remember anything right out the gate that is going to help. And you become flat-footed as you rummage around in your bag, trying to find just the right item to affect this creature.
Good Lord, protect and watch over me as a shepherd watches over his flock. Ya ilahi, sayerni ameis, havani. No, okay.
Chocho, Musa, Baum. Chocho, Baum.
What the state of connect?
Already gone over the mortal weakness and the antithesis. Implements empowerment. When you are using your implement, which needs to be in your offhand, so you have to consider that with this class, you are using one-handed weapons. You are not going to be a two-handed wielder for the most part. So long as you have your implement out, it empowers your weapon and you deal 2 additional damage per weapon die. So this is going to help you offset perhaps not being super high on strength and dex because maybe you're working a little bit more on intelligence and charisma, but you're still going to be a viable fighter with this boost. Now at 5, you get something interesting. You get a second implement. So you'll go back to the list of all the implements and now you can grab a second one that you were like, ooh, I really like that one, but I decided to go with this one. Well, now you can have it. And you have both, and you can switch out which ones you're using and which effects you're using. Implement Adept. You can choose one of your implements and unlock its second tier ability called its Adept ability, so you get more benefits from your primary esoteric item. At 9, you get Intensify Vulnerability. So this is once you have already exploited their vulnerability, you can spend a second action to intensify it, and your implement has a specific effect that happens from intensifying the vulnerability. So you've already figured out the vampire's aversion to garlic, you've presented it, empowered your weapon, and then you present your implement rather than your esoterica now, and they are just repulsed even further, and that energy comes together, giving you a greater bonus from your implement. Thaumaturge expertise is interesting, and this is why you got to pay attention. You might have just assumed at 9, oh, you get a proficiency boost in your class DC. Okay, but you also get a skill increase to Arcana, Nature, Occultism, or Religion. And it's just a skill increase. It's not an increase to Expert. It's not an increase to Master. If you've normally poured points into this and you can go to the next tier and you haven't yet, you can bump it as high up as you are currently able. Armor Expertise goes up for Light and Medium at 11. Also at 11, your second implement can get its Adept feat, so now you've got both of those working. Greater Resolve, critical failures on your will save now just become normal failures. Weapon Mastery at 13, Greater Weapon Specialization at 15, Fortitude increase at 15, your third implement at 15, so now you have 3 of them rocking. In this you get the Initiate benefit and the Intensify Vulnerability, so all 3 of your implements can do whatever their Initiate benefit is, and they can intensify vulnerability. At 17, you can move to your Implement Paragon on your primary implement. Thaumaturge Mastery, your DC goes up and you get another skill increase to Arcana and Nature. And then at level 19 for your capstone, you can exploit vulnerability and intensify vulnerability as free actions rather than a single action. So you can only do once per round, but essentially, you don't have to spend your action economy on those, and you've just become that much more efficient. All right, that is the basics of the Thaumaturge. You are best at will saves, you're pretty good at fortitude saves, you're getting some bonuses to your weapons, you're getting your special implements, and you are the recall knowledge expert using your esoteric lore, or even just normal knowledges if you need, but esoteric lore is really where it's at to get all of the information and exploiting that vulnerability on your enemies. As always, if you like what we do here on the channel, guys, like and subscribe down below, pushing to that 1,000 subs by the end of winter, as well as if you want to support the channel, the easiest way is leave a comment down below. Gonna wish you a fantastic time on your 20-side adventures. We'll catch you next time.